So Nisha, I believe you have in front of you a list of one-line jokes to fit with the theme of today's video. So would you like to read one to the audience at home?
My teacher accused me of plagiarism. His words, not mine.
Not bad. A wise man once said that all work and no play makes blank a dull boy. Well, apparently, Henny Youngman ignored the absolute shit out of that advice and worked pretty much every single day up until he died at the age of 91.
So Henry Youngman was a comedian.
Yeah, by trade, and specifically he specialised in one-liner jokes, and his shtick was that he would walk on stage holding a violin that he never played. And it sounds weird now, but trust me, back when he was performing, it did bring the house down because he became such a well-known aspect of his characterisation on stage that rumours began circulating that he couldn't actually play the instrument,
Right.
which wasn't true. He was actually a very accomplished violinist. It's just that he stuck to the ethos of always leave the audience wanting more. So he would only play the violin as the finale of bigger acts that he did. And he would only ever usually go on stage for a few minutes at a time, usually when the audience was laughing their hardest, so that he could come back on stage for perhaps an impromptu encore and tell more jokes. And in that vein, Nisha, are there any comedians with gimmicks that you quite like or think are pretty funny?
I quite like Milton Jones because he's more of a one-liner. On panel shows especially because he won't say anything and he would just come out with one line.
Yeah, he's a non sequitur, just one-liner comedian, and I do like his shtick. He wears Hawaiian shirts, isn't it? And he has his hair all styled up crazy, so he looks like a madman. I think he looks like the Wheatos professor, is how I usually describe him. And my dad said he went to see him live. He says he didn't understand it until he got about halfway through the show, and then he'd never laughed so hard in his entire life. So yeah, that does work. Well, one of my favourite gimmick comedians is one who's unfortunately no longer with us, and that's Mitch Hedberg. Are you familiar with him at all?
No.
Well, he was a comedian with stage fright, which you think, well, that is the worst possible fear for a comedian to have. So what he would do to combat this is he would wear a giant pair of sunglasses, sweep all his hair over his eyes and put his head down and just talk into his microphone. Sometimes he'd just face the wall and tell his jokes like that.
Okay.
And it sounds really weird, and that's because it was, but he was a really weird dude.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where if you didn't get it, his shows would go horribly and he would bomb and no one would laugh. But if you gelled with him, they were some of the best comedy you've ever seen. I think he's one of those comedians where other comedians go, yeah, he was a genius.
Yeah.
People can't comprehend how fucking good that guy was. I'm so mad that he's dead. It's he would have been he was just on the cusp of becoming the biggest thing in comedy. And then, as if the universe itself wanted in on the joke, he went ahead and died on April Fool's Day. So nobody thought he was dead. It's people heard because obviously this is back in the 90s, I think the era of online message boards. It's Mitch Hedberg's dead. It's well, he's 27 years old and it's April Fool's Day, I'm not falling for that one. Yeah. No, he's really, really dead.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and that's I think it's Red Fox, the comedian, and one of his bits was he pretended to have a heart attack. And then he had a heart attack on stage, and the audience didn't know, and he died.
He had a real one pretending to have one?
No, one of his bits was he pretended to have a heart attack, and then he had a real heart attack on stage, and the audience laughed, thinking it was one of the jokes. And then to bring it back to gimmick comedians, that exact scenario also happened with Tommy Cooper.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Tommy Cooper at all?
Very vaguely.
Okay, old school comedian, and he used to wear a fez. That was his thing.
Yeah.
The guy with the fez. So you remember him, don't you?
Yeah.
And that's why gimmick comedians, it can work sometimes. But his shtick was that he was a magician, but his magic tricks would always go wrong. But he was also actually a really good magician, which you need to be to pretend that magic tricks are going wrong. And one of the things that he would always do is pretend that he was sick. And I think one of my favourite visual gags ever is when he'd walk on stage and go, I've had a horrible pain here all day. And he'd pull out a small sheet of glass. And it's
no pain,
if you don't get that, that's fine. But that to me is fucking hilarious. And he again had a heart attack on stage and people thought it was a joke. So his dying moments were people laughing at him. He's like, please send help. And it's oh no, the life of a comedian is one of endless tragedy, apparently.
It's kind of earlier this year, I went to see a pantomime which was Peter Pan Goes Wrong. Where the setup, everything goes wrong on stage on purpose. And part of me was thinking, what if something actually goes wrong?
Oh, yeah.
And we don't know it? What happens?
There was a famous story about that, and it's a candid camera show. We used to do You've Been Framed.
Yeah.
I think it's the Canadian version of that. The host was on a plane that got hijacked.
Oh,
And everyone on the plane recognised him and thought it was a bit. And he's like, no, it's not. The plane is actually being hijacked. And the hijacker's like, yes, we are hijacking this plane. And everyone's just laughing at him. And he's like, what? And that's a story that's so stupid, it has to be true. Because if you wrote that, people wouldn't believe it. And it's like, yeah, man. Fucking comedians, just like, damn.
Did you ever see that bit on SMTV when it was Ant and Dec and Kat Deely and Dec pretended to faint live on TV and people thought it was real, but when they came back from the break, said, "Oh yeah, it was a joke because it's April Fool's." But even though it was April Fool's, a lot of like mums that were watching were like, really
you can't do that on TV. You are not allowed to do that anymore.
Yeah, there's a clip out there on YouTube. Like, I probably, if whoever edits it, could probably find it.
Yeah, it's like
just faints on stage.
I was now at the BBC used to do a lot of jokes on April Fool's Day, and then they got told stop fucking doing this. It's really bad. Like the Heffalump one. Do you remember the Heffalump one?
I think so. Yeah.
Which is a very famous story about like, a hoax about the BBC.
Yeah.
And one of the most respected organisations for like newscasting worldwide put out this fake documentary about this weird creature called a heffalump that has purple shit. They also did another one on another April Fool's Day about the trees in Italy where they grow spaghetti.
What?
Yeah, the spaghetti trees one. And it's put out by, I think it's like Panorama, which is like a super serious, factual show that never does jokes. And they did an April Fool's Day about Italy's spaghetti trees. And they got inundated with calls like, why do I get a spaghetti tree from? To which they responded, get a tin of tomato sauce and plant it in your back garden. And they were told, like, please stop doing this. It's really bad.
I wonder how many people actually did that.
People tried and they complained.
So Henry Youngman was known for doing one-liners.
Yes, he was a one-liner comedian by trade, though he did sometimes occasionally tell longer jokes.
So I'm assuming his sets didn't last very long if they were really short jokes.
Yeah, that's the thing. His sets were usually just a few minutes in length, and he did play bigger shows. But the thing is, his shows weren't short because he didn't have enough material. It was in fact quite the opposite, because Henny could play multiple shows a day to the same audience and tell different jokes every single time. Like I said, he always wants to do the thing of always keep them waiting. And in fact, he had so many jokes and a seemingly eidetic memory for recalling them that there is a book out there titled 10,000 One-Liners, all credited to him. He literally wrote a book of 10,000 one-liners, all of which he could seemingly recall at a moment's notice, allowing him to just like, if he wanted to, do an hour's worth of material, or 5 minutes, and then an hour later, another 5 minutes, then another 5 minutes, and then another 5 minutes.
I admire people who have memories like that, because I had to obviously look up one-liner jokes on my phone for the start of this video. Like, I don't remember any. Yeah,
I think one-liner comedians are the ones I respect the most, just because of just the sheer amount of like memorization that has to go in it. Not to mention like with the delivery, and then you have to like, you know, if they don't work, you can't obviously tell jokes in that vein. You have to like, you know, mix up your material a little bit, which is difficult. So you have to like work on the fly. And the only comedians I respect more than that are just like purely improvisational ones.
Yeah.
I think like Ross Noble, who I've not seen him live myself, but I know people who have, and they've said, I've watched his shows one night after the next, and they're completely different. Because he'll go on stage with an hour's worth of material, but 2 hours of time to fill.
Jesus.
And he will go and he will riff on like what stuff that the audience happens, so every show is different.
Yeah.
And that to me is like, that's balls. That is fucking balls right there. To have so much confidence in your comedic timing and ability to improvise, you will go on stage with half the material you need.
Yeah, something I like with comedians is when they like pick on people in the crowd.
Yes.
They'll keep like referring back to that person throughout the show, like keep making jokes back at them, and it's like, well, obviously that person's a random person.
And they could have any job in the world. It's Dara O'Brien does that a lot, doesn't he? We went to see him live, and I've watched the Lee Mack show where he did that.
Mack, definitely
and
Lee Mack.
Lee Mack has an amazing story about that, where his very first stand-up gig ever. Like, he'll tell the story better than me, and presumably clips will go in of him telling it, because I had to stop watching comedy, even though I really like it and I like the theory and the idea behind crafting a joke, because I don't want to have the scenario of me like inadvertently repeating a comedian's joke in this show without crediting them, because I forget where it comes from, and then people think I'm stealing that person's joke. So I'm not. But like the long story short is like Lee Mack, his very first gig, like someone told him, look, you only need to do one joke if you want to like bring the house down, because I think it was like Butlins, and I'll ask people where they're from and riff until you find a guy who's from Kent. And when they say I'm from Kent, you say, what did you just call me? The joke now, it sounds like the C word.
Yeah.
And Lee Mack's like, yeah, I forgot that line because I was really drunk. And I just like was asking people like, where are you from? Bristol, hi. Where are you from? London, hi. Then I was panicking, so I said, is anybody in from Kent? To which the guy went, I am. He went, well, you're a cunt. And he said obviously that didn't work at the time, but he tells that joke in stand-up now, and it's apparently the proudest moment of his comedic career because he told it on an interview show with John Cleese next to him, and John Cleese fucking loses it. He says, my proudest comedic moment is making John Cleese laugh. Which is that one, like, you're a cunt.
Oh, lovely Mag.
He's so fast.
So witty. I think we've spoke about him before.
We have, yeah. So we'll go back to Mr. Henny Youngman because there's really cool shit about his life too.
So you mentioned he used to do multiple sets per day.
Yes.
So how many would he do per year?
It's noted that Mr. Youngman would do about 200 shows per year, every year, and did so pretty much up until, the day that he died. And that in itself is pretty impressive, but it's likely that he did many more shows than that because he was noted as being very, very proactive when it came to getting work. And because of that, it's noted that he would play any show for any amount of money if he happened to have the time. And because of this, it's likely that he performed at least once per day, every day, for almost 70 fucking years. Because there are stories about him putting on shows when he was having dinner with his wife on the way to the bathroom, because a fan would recognise him, to which he would go, well, if you want me to perform for you, I'll do so for $20 or something like that. They go, yeah, sure, we'll pay $20 to see this world-famous comedian tell some jokes at a table, which he would then do, pocket the $20, go back to his table, where his wife would be sat there and he'd go, well, I've got $20, it's $20.
So he'll pay part towards the meal.
And he would do that sometimes multiple times per day. So people come up to him and talk to him and goes, well, I'll put on a show for you if you want. How much have you got? And they go, well, I've got $30. I'll do a show for $30. 5 minutes. It's like, yeah, sure. And it's noted that he hated not working so much that he would sometimes artificially engineer situations so he could perform.
Well, do you have an example of this happening?
Well, of course we do. And one of the things that Mr. Youngman would do is he would gatecrash weddings, birthdays, bar mitzvahs, that sort of thing, like going to hotels and just milling around until somebody recognised him.
Right.
And when they recognised him and went, hey, would you mind telling a few jokes to mark the occasion? He'd go, sure, for $100. To which they'd usually go, yeah, sure, why not? Like, world famous comedian offering to put on a show for $100 fucking on this special occasion. Like, yeah, that makes our event look so baller. We got Henny Youngman on stage, man, let's go. And according to people who knew him, if that didn't work, he would just walk up to the most important looking person at the event and just say, I'm Henny Youngman, I'll do 10 minutes for $100. To which the answer would usually be, sure.
Yeah.
Like, because how baller does it make you look that a world-famous comedian is approaching you to perform at your event?
It's like, yeah, it's one of those opportunities you don't want to say no to because it's this famous comedian just racking up at you with your wedding or whatever, conference or whatever it is.
And he'll play for 10 minutes, and obviously that really just adds to the prestige of the event. Of like, holy shit, this really famous dude's coming on stage and it's only going to cost me like $100 fucking for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, which obviously they thought was once in a lifetime. So, what a random coincidence. He happens to know he was there. And he wanted to get fucking paid.
Yeah, it's a thing he does.
Every fucking day. We'll presumably do it to the next event that was in that room. And this story is the inverse of those you hear about. People who just randomly invite celebrities to their wedding or some shit and they just turn up unexpectedly.
Yeah, because the Queen do that to someone's wedding.
Yeah, she did.
She had a gap in her calendar.
Just
thought, yeah, why not?
The story goes, I think it was the couple getting married and as a joke sent an invite to the Queen, which somehow came to her attention when like an aide or something mentioned it. And she went, yeah, I've got a gap in my schedule, I'll turn up. And the Queen just rocked up, shook everyone's hand and went, yeah, have a nice day.
That's so cool.
And the one that I like, though, is I think it was a couple in Poland who had their wedding on the same day that Iron Maiden were playing a show. And as a joke, asked if Iron Maiden wanted to play the reception. And that got to the band somehow, and the band were like, yeah, fuck it, and played their wedding reception. And again, how fucking baller do you look when people rock up to your wedding? So, who have you got playing the reception? You got a DJ, you got like a little local band. So, no, Iron fucking Maiden. Iron Maiden come specifically to my wedding to play my reception.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Oh, it's so good. Then you got Henny Youngman who's like, yeah, getting in there.
All right, so he worked every day.
Pretty much, yes.
Surely he took a break. Everyone needs a break.
They usually do, yes. And according to people, more familiar with, Youngman's life story than we are, and have no reason to really make shit up, the only times he was known to have taken a break from his like, his brutal like, performing schedule, and like, from that thing he would do of like approaching people, just doing sets whenever, was for a week after his wife unfortunately passed away, and then another time he stopped for I think 2 weeks when he caught pneumonia when he was 91.
But you said he died when he was 91.
Yeah, the pneumonia killed him. So the only two things that could stop him performing were literal deaths.
Oh my God.
Including his own. What a fucking badass, man. 91 years old, still rocking. God love it.
So, Karl, you're one of those people that doesn't really take much time off.
No, I hate taking time off. I don't like not working. Which obviously it's a good thing that I like my job and it's fun, but with it being a creative job, when I have to write, I have to continue to be in that mindset.
Yeah.
The reason I hate it is because every time I ever took like a week off, getting back into the groove of writing and coming up with jokes and researching was just laborious and torturous, and it drove me fucking mad. So I found the one way to like counteract that is just always make sure I do at least one thing per day where I'm researching, writing, jotting down an idea, just keeping myself in the mindset of, okay, this is funny, this is an idea I can do something with, jot it down so I've got that creative outlet. Because if you don't, you're fucked.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's like applicable. If I was working, say, like, a regular job like I used to, yeah, I'd be taking time off all the fucking time. When I worked in a bar, I took fucking time off when I wanted it, but...
Yeah, you need time off from working in a bar.
You do, yes. And that's why I'm very, very mindful of like the idea of burnout, which I'm very lucky to have not experienced that harshly.
Been going for about, this channel's been going for like nearly 3 years, isn't it?
Almost, yeah, and I've been writing for 10.
Yeah,
and I only had one moment of burnout when I took like a month off when I went to Europe and just like, travel around there for a bit. But now I've been very lucky in that regard, and I'm mindful of it. And people who I do get random messages like, I'm really worried, Karl, your outputs. I say, no, I'm fine. People who work with the channel, they've been told, like you've been told, if you ever see me, just like, Karl, just take a break. Do you know that thing of the stop posting?
Yeah.
Like the cat hand on the person's hand is about to like, no, just stop. Just take that break. And you're also in the creative industry now, so is your thought process similar, or you're just like, no, fuck it, time off all the time?
I do take a lot of time off, but at the minute I'm trying to change my diet and get exercise because I'm just knackered all the time.
Yeah.
So me being knackered all the time makes me not want to work. It's like mentally, like I do want to work and keep up with doing creative stuff, and teaching myself new things. But then on the other side of me, I'm like, just tired. So tired.
That's just a very like, millennial thing to be. Just tired all the time.
Yeah.
And I do get that. I understand it, but I can't stand not working. I feel so angsty when I just sit there like you want like me trying to relax looks so fucking stressful because I just sit there. Maybe it's a little bit. Maybe I can just do a little bit of research. Maybe I can just like have a look at my. No, I'm relaxing today. Put the phone down. But that article did look a bit interesting. Maybe if I just read it for fun, I could turn that into a video. And it's like I'm awful. I'm the worst.
Kind of like that when I am relaxing or whatever. I will still be doing like multiple things. I'll be watching telly, but also on my phone, and also talking to someone. And I'll be like doing multiple things, like as relaxing.
Yeah.
I can't just sit still.
Yeah, it drives me mad. I can't stand it. But I guess that's part of the reason why the channel's successful, because it is just my personality.
Yeah.
And I guess if I just switched off and just stopped being like this, maybe it wouldn't be as successful. Or maybe it would be more successful. Because then I wouldn't give a fuck, and then we'd have sponsors. Then we'd have loads of money.
Yeah, but you like that honest.
Yeah, I also like just waking up whatever the fuck I want. That's pretty sweet.